Hello everyone. This is a need-to-know basis, and I'll be starting this series on a very important subject that, whether you know it or not, affects your everyday life and how you and other people perceive the world, otherwise known as journalism. This may seem obvious to you, especially to those who are more interested in or have some experience in the subject, but the ability to spread information can be a very powerful tool, and something that many have taken advantage of for nearly forever. This has evolved from spreading information through word of mouth, to being able to read it on mass-produced literature, to being able to hear on the radio and then later through a television or phone screen. Information, true or otherwise, is something that influences not only how one person thinks, but sometimes an entire country. Journalism is that very concept distilled into its purest form, with every journalist, from writer to editor, being responsible for how a person's worldview can form from the ground up. It's very important to know the ins and outs of what makes a journalist not only factual, but also responsible for how they present their information. In this course, I'll attempt to give you the tools and the direction needed to make sure you know how this field works, both as an outsider and an insider. To start this, we'll have to focus on what foundational principles make up journalism, especially when it comes to its role within a democracy. Larry Diamond, an American political scientist, states that a democracy is composed of four main elements. Those elements are choosing a government and our representatives through fair and free elections, active participation of the people in the governing process, human rights protections, and the rule of law. The first two elements are what make a free press vital to democracy. Not only is a free press vital, but without it, democracy would not exist. Along with the elements of democracy, you have Abraham Lincoln's theory of democracy as one in which the government is of the people, by the people, for the people. To analyze his words, the people, aka the citizens, help establish and run their government by voting for the individuals who will represent their interests. Those who have been elected must then make and enforce laws and regulations that meet the needs of the people. Journalists and the free press provide the means in which the public are informed about current issues plaguing the world, the nation, and their local regions. Other than what is happening within an individual's small circle of friends and family, how is an individual to know what issues are currently plaguing their community and society as a whole? They rely on journalists. If there is an issue or concern within a society that must be addressed and debated, journalists provide the information required for individual citizens to be informed. Once they have this information, citizens can then discuss it, debate it, and decide and vote on the best path forward. Healthy discussion and debate, no matter how difficult and controversial the topic, is essential to a healthy democracy. Discussion and debate ensures all voices are heard. Without journalists, citizens are left in the dark on certain issues. It is the citizens who are best left to decide what path a certain piece of legislation must take. If their elected representative acts on their own, without the knowledge of the citizens, who is to say that representative is acting in the best interests of the citizens? Here's an example that should give you a good idea on where to start. Start by asking yourself this question: who is the person that represents me on my local city council? Who is the mayor that leads my city government and appoints people to various local positions? Who is the head of the departments that are in charge of my water, my sanitation, anything else? Ideally, you'd be able to identify these people very easily, and also know the best way to meet and converse with them on a one-to-one basis. You'd even be able to know what's going on at their council meetings through your local paper if you're too busy to make it to their meetings yourself. If you're unable to, then how do you know that your local representative, the one who's likely to have more power over you than the president, is working in your best interest? This is where your local journalist should step in. This leads into another important topic: knowing what issues are going on around you. Bringing certain issues to light that would go unnoticed if not for journalists helps keep the public aware. Without this knowledge, there would be no push for real change in certain sectors. One well-known example is the myriad of stories, investigated and published by journalists, of abuses within nursing homes. The majority of the public was unaware of these abuses. Once the stories of abuse appeared, the public demanded action. The government then pushed legislation through that would help prevent abuse of patients and residents in nursing homes. The Elder Justice Act was one such piece of legislation. Without the work done by journalists, these acts of abuse would never have come to the public's attention. When the public is informed, they demand action from their representatives. This is a perfect example of how a healthy and functioning democracy depends on journalists and a free press. Ensuring a healthy and functioning democracy also involves the watchdog function of journalism. Journalists report on the actions, or inactions, of elected officials so that citizens are aware of what their representatives are doing, in and out of office. If, for example, a state governor is lying about how many nursing home deaths, due to COVID-19, there are within the state, how are the citizens of that state going to know about it? Journalists report on this information and report on the efforts of that governor to hide that information. With this new information, citizens can determine whether or not to recall the governor or ensure they are not re-elected in the next election. In Tim Crook's book, Comparative Media Law and Ethics, R. Brooke Rich stated, underlying these First Amendment guarantees is the belief that the key to effective government is an informed citizenry, one that is not told by the government what is right, but instead makes those determinations itself, through its own education. Armed with the knowledge provided to them in a free marketplace of ideas, these citizens elect officials who, with the citizens' informed consent, steer the government on its proper course. In order to be an informed citizen and vote responsibly, the citizen must first be informed. It is the journalist's job to ensure that the citizens are informed. Let's go back to the subject of local government again. Let's say you now know who your mayor is and all the names of the people on your city council. You know who exactly leads your police department, the services for your water, and even who helps make sure the city's plumbing works correctly. This is a fantastic start, but the next idea you need to know is what exactly are they doing right this minute. The best way to do this is figuring out when and how often they meet. This leads to the following questions. How often do they meet? What time and what do they talk about to the public? What do they not discuss in front of the public and why? And what does any of the legal jargon they talk about mean in a way that makes sense? In a good world, you'd be able to figure this all out by attending meetings regularly and being able to talk with your representatives often enough for all of it to make sense to you. In a perfect world, however, your local journalist should be able to do it for you and make sure that it's done in a way that you won't have as many questions afterward. This is why journalism is important. Let's do a quick review on what we've learned so far here. Journalism is a very vital part of the democratic system and how it keeps it moving forward. Journalists are a key part in keeping the public informed about what's going on in our nation, as well as making sure people know why it's happening. Journalism can help change the outcome of an election, or even bring to light serious issues if the power is wielded correctly, performing as a watchdog that alerts the public at a moment's notice. Information is vital to making a democracy run, and journalists are the go-between for the public and their leaders. I hope this video was a good way to start into this topic and how journalism works within a functioning democracy. The way information is presented and how it can have an effect is very obvious in our democratic process, and a look into how reporting is done in certain countries can be a window into how it's run. Make sure to give special attention to your local news sources in the near future if you want to understand this concept further.